In one of the control rooms of a mall, people are frantic. They're only given a very short amount of time to dress up their boss as Cupid. Joo-hoo can't wait to enact the grand proposal he has envisioned for his girlfriend Momo, who is currently shopping for a new dress. He also puts on a body costume to complete the muscular look. He walks confidently while his wings accidentally hit people. Then they receive a report from one of their associates that Momo is about to ride an elevator. Joo-hoo instructs his subordinates to make sure that no one will ride the elevator with her. But what he doesn't know is that someone is fated to unintentionally ruin his plans. Her name is Tang Nan, and she enters the elevator after Momo. She is wearing a cheap copycat of Momo's 5550 Yuan Drive S. Generally, ladies don't like it when other women wear the same clothes, so the atmosphere gets awkward between them real quick. It gets worse when the elevator sounds the alarm for maximum load, although there are only 2 of them inside. Nan gets out, but the alarm continues. Momo doesn't like the implication that she's the one that caused the alarm, so she decides to walk away, leaving Nan alone in the elevator. Inside, she takes selfies. She feels so beautiful and confident in the cheap copycat dress, and because it's cheap, it easily rips on the hem. Embarrassed by this, she covers her face as she gets out of the elevator. To her surprise, the floor is dimmed, but the huge flower lamps that decorate the place light up one by one. At the end of the way, a carriage is waiting, with a huge heart in the background. 2 floors above, Joo-hoo is preparing to swing down. He doesn't notice that a different woman has walked right into his grand proposal. But because he's overly confident and doesn't check with his people, he goes with his plan. He shoots an arrow at a bag hanging above. This causes thousands of petals to fall. This triggers Nan's allergy, making her sneeze non-stop. Then, Joo-hoo swings from a wire, but he looks more like an angel that's falling disgracefully from heaven. He accidentally rips her dress as he swings by. Then Nan grabs his body costume and forcefully pulls it from his body. That's an instant body wax for Joo-hoo. To end this series of mishaps, he hits his butt on the protruding arrow on the giant heart. He is hospitalized because of this incident. His best friend, Xiao Jianjun, makes fun of his bum. Even though they're close, Jianjun still reprimands his best friend for his careless spending of his mother's money. He knows that Joo-hoo is a spoiled brat who always does what's on his mind, because his mother's money will always back him up. After scolding him, Jianjun leaves for his trip overseas. He bumps into a girl whose face is heavily covered by a scarf. This girl is Nan. Because of the proposal fiasco, her lips and lower face have become swollen. She visits Joo-hoo to charge him for the medical bills and her expensive-looking imitation dress. But Joo-hoo won't budge. He walks out of his room carrying his wallet, telling her that she won't receive a penny from him. A scuffle breaks out between the stubborn Joo-hoo and the insistent Nan. And it culminates when Joo-hoo's wallet gets thrown out of the window and into a trash bin. The 2 fight again, with him pressing her onto the bench. This is what Momo sees when she arrives to visit her boyfriend. She wants to talk to him privately, but Nan won't leave them alone until she gets paid. Momo doesn't recognize her due to her swollen face, but she pays her so she will leave them alone. Then, she becomes candid with Joo-hoo. She is thankful for the 3 months he spent courting her, but he's too childish for her liking. The grand proposal and the fiasco around it, which she witnessed from another floor, is the last straw for her. Their conversation should have been solemn, if not for Nan laughing after receiving her payment. Regardless, Momo is resolute in breaking up with Joo-hoo. She says goodbye. Nan also leaves him. Joo-hoo can't believe his misfortune since meeting that puffy-lipped girl. But this is only the beginning of his misery. The nurse tells him he needs to pay his hospital dues. But because his wallet is already lost, he doesn't have any money, and he gets evicted from the hospital. So he wanders the street in an adult diaper and tattered blazer. He goes home and tries to enter, but he can't remember the passcode for the security system. Unfortunately, the guards don't recognize him and evict him from his own house. Meanwhile, Nan goes home to her humble apartment. She gives the money she received to her grandmother, who is about to undergo eye surgery. Nan is well loved by her neighbors. Some of the elderly even give her soup. But despite this, she is still struggling financially. She works as an online writer. Due to her swollen face and unwellness the past few days, she hasn't written and submitted any stories. Her editor is reprimanding her for being late, and she has already lost a sizable profit. Nan tries her best to write, so she can pay her bills for the month. 1 week has passed. Nan's allergy has healed. She walks to the park when suddenly she gets accosted by a raging, homeless man. She is surprised to recognize him as Joo-hoo. Feeling compassion for the man, she brings him home to feed him. Poor Joo-hoo hasn't had any decent meals in days, and the noodles must have been a feast for him. He tells Nan his miserable plight for the last week, saying that he has a number dysmnesia. It's a memory impairment that makes him forget numbers with more than 3 digits easily. Nan doesn't want to let him stay in her apartment, because it will make the rent higher. But Joo-hoo insists. He feels entitled that he should be allowed in her place, seeing that it's neat and comfortable. He still blames her for his misfortunes, so he wants to annoy her as much as possible. And this starts the chaotic living arrangement between Ju-hoo and Nan Nan. As much as possible, he annoys the hell out of her. He finds out she's a writer and has published some books with vulgar titles. Apparently, the public loves them, and the story that goes with it. He uses her books as wedges for the broken sofa, and he disturbs her writing when he gets the chance. And sometimes, he uses sliced cucumbers on his face, then leaves them on the table, only for her to accidentally eat them. Nan Nan just bears it. She sleeps on the sofa, while he sleeps on her bed. She also prioritizes completing her word count for the month so she can get paid, even though it's a hard task with him around. Ju-hoo is a brat through and through, and this shows when he carelessly comments that people who like to buy cheap vegetables are also cheap. This earns him a shower of celery from those people. Before they know it, 3 weeks have passed. Ju-hoo is enjoying his time living with Nan Nan, and she has adjusted her writing schedule with his presence in the apartment. One night, they walk home from the grocery store. They pass by a boutique shop that displays an elegant red dress. Nan Nan has always wanted to buy expensive clothes and wear them, but her financial status and responsibilities keep her from doing so. Ju-hoo tries to persuade her. In his mind, as long as she has money to spend, then why not buy the things she likes? Nan Nan points out that she's not like him, who can spend thousands on a whim. This reminds Ju-hoo of the dress that, according to her, got ruined because of the proposal. He remembers that it's worth 5550 yuan. How can she afford that dress, but not buy the red one? Sensing a scam, Ju-hoo searches her closet until he finds the dress. To his indignation, the clothing is only worth 60 yuan from a street stall. He is annoyed that Nan Nan charged him a large sum of money for a cheap dress. To her credit, she admits her faults and expresses regret for her actions, explaining that she only did it because she needed the money at the time. Still annoyed, Ju-hoo hauls and slams her onto her bed. Then he takes the keys and shuts her inside her room. The next day, when she finally gets released from her bedroom, she receives a call from her editor Tianchen. She's inviting Nan Nan to the Writers Association Summit, where she can meet the famous editor Ma. Nan Nan sees this chance to impress the aloof editor, so she agrees to go. But Ju-hoo won't allow her without any consequences. He's locked them in. She wrestles the key from him, which puts them in a suggestive position. This is what Tianchen sees when she enters Nan Nan's apartment. As a compromise, she gives Ju-hoo her credit card, which contains all of her savings, in return for her keys to her apartment. It may not be much to pay back the money she charged him, but at least he gets some spending money. Of course, he agrees, but he still enjoys annoying her. In fact, his day is not complete without seeing Nan Nan wanting to rip her hair out because of him. He calls her while she's at the summit. She asks her to send him photos of her posing. This is because he saw Nan Nan's selfies and used her vital statistics as the credit card's password when he set it up. If there's one thing he's really good at, it's correctly guessing somebody's measurement through pictures. But since he has problems memorizing numbers, he calls her for help. Nan Nan grudgingly sends him the pictures, but somehow Ju-hoo gets her measurement wrong. He asks her to directly tell him her measurements. Annoyed, she shouts the numbers, embarrassing herself in front of editor Ma and other A-list writers. When she gets home, she is surprised to find an expensive leather couch in her living room. She also sees the red dress she dreamed of buying. Ju-hoo says he bought them to thank her, but when she checks her credit card, it's maxed out. He has spent every penny on luxurious items. It's incredible how Ju-hoo doesn't have any notion of cheap versus expensive when he's given spending money. Because of this, they have to live with much cheaper meals, and Nan Nan has to delay her rent payment. She writes frantically to earn whatever money she can scrape off. Poor Nan Nan gets hallucinations about eating Ju-hoo and a burger. She needs to earn money as soon as possible, especially when her landlord has given her an ultimatum. At last, Ju-hoo comes to his senses and helps her earn. She only has 200 yuan, which, for him, is enough for a so-called startup. The next day, he gets a job as a valet. When a guest asks him to park her Ford Mustang, he uses this opportunity to bring Nan Nan and drive around the parking areas. He parks near an available space and waits for someone with a luxury car to park in it. Then he maneuvers the car, deftly parking at the slot before the other person. He'll pretend to be annoyed and pay the person 200 yuan to go away. But because these people have the money to waste and the pride to show, they will give him thousands of yuan just to show who's better. This is a clever scam targeting people who don't care about their money, as long as it will give them status. Ju-hoo knows this mentality because he also thinks this way. Or at least, he did. Before the day ends, they've accumulated 35,000 yuan. Nan Nan is so impressed that she invites him to a bar. She praises him for his clever way of earning money. Ju-hoo is humble enough to admit that was once like that, but he's learned so much during the days that he stayed with her. In his sincere way, he dedicates a song to her. It's about love that transcends pride and prejudice. Could it be that he's slowly falling for her? Nan Nan smiles at him and appreciates the gesture. Perhaps he's not so bad at all. He still has redeeming qualities that she likes. But this shared moment between them gets lost in drinking and partying. When they wake up the next day, they find out their bill is 35,000 yuan. Nan Nan remembers that she got drunk too much and offered free drinks to the crowd for the night. Dejected and spaced out, the two of them return to her apartment, only to find her things packed. Her landlord has evicted her. Stressed with her situation, Nan Nan can't help but blame Zhu Hu for everything that has happened. While they are carrying her things, one of her bags falls to the ground. Zhu Hu picks it up, and he sees a bank book that contains 100,000 yuan. That's certainly more than enough for her to get her apartment back and live comfortably. So he tries to remind her of any savings accounts that she may have forgotten. But Nan Nan becomes sarcastic towards him. If she had money left, why would she let him know about it? He'll just spend it away. Zhu Hu gets offended by this. He tells her that he thought they were friends after everything they've been through. She scoffs at him. They're not friends, she says. She just simply provided him with food and a roof above his head. If his pride is wounded, or if still feels wronged by her previous actions, then he can go back to his mommy and cry. Zhu Hu knows that Nan Nan has crossed a line. He angrily accuses her of prejudice against him. He doesn't want to talk to her anymore. If she goes on like this, then no man will ever want her. This time, it's him who crosses a line, although he doesn't know anything about it yet. But he can clearly see that she's hurt by his comment, which he immediately regrets. For Nan Nan, it only brings back painful memories from that part of her life. No man will want her, huh? Then she'll show him her worth, even if it's only to help him get back home. She gathers her things and walks with Zhu Hu to his house. The door is still locked. Nan Nan seizes a sledgehammer from one of the gardeners, then proceeds to bash the door in its lock. She kicks it down, which surprises Jian Jun, who happens to be inside. He sees Nan Nan in her cool stance, with the sledgehammer resting on her shoulder. It's an instant infatuation for him. But when he sees Zhu Hu behind her, he feels relieved. He's been looking for his best friend, and his mom is worried about him. Soon, the story is relayed to him. To show his gratitude, Jian Jun pays Nan Nan's rent, which allows her to return home. But he's so attracted to her that he invites her on a date. Of course, Zhu Hu won't let this pass, and is determined to ruin the date. He can't let Nan Nan go to another man. Jian Jun and Nan Nan go to a theater, where a Romeo and Juliet play is being shown. Except that Romeo is tomato and Juliet is egg, and broccoli and cauliflower are stopping them from being together. Nan Nan actually wrote this play and posted it on Weibo before. A director bought the rights to produce it, and the rest is history. However, this play doesn't earn much, because all the tickets are giveaways. Also, Nan Nan volunteers to act as the broccoli. It seems like mishaps always follow her when Zhu Hu is around, because she almost falls from the rig that's supposed to lower her during the scene. Zhu Hu and Jiang Jun run to help her, but they're always trying to one-up each other. In the end, Nan Nan manages to say her lines and entertain the audience, and Zhu Hu falls into a burger cushion. The disorderly play surprisingly receives a standing ovation from the audience. After this, Zhu Hu sneakily carries Nan Nan away so Jian Jun won't get his chance with her. He says his friend is a playboy, and she's better off without him. He plops her onto a cart full of empty plastic bottles, then rides the bike attached to it and drives away. Nan Nan is so confused about Zhu Hu's actions and intentions. But before he can say what he feels, they crash into a car. Of all people to see them in this situation, it is the man who Nan Nan wants to forget the most. His name is Zhang Hai, and he is her ex-boyfriend. Later that night, Nan Nan receives a call from Zhang Hai's wife, Miss Fang. She insults Nan Nan first, before inviting her to dinner at an expensive hotel. She thinks that poor and desperate Nan Nan won't even be able to afford the right dress to wear for the event. But she's wrong. Nan Nan has the red dress that Zhu Hu carelessly bought for her. It's time to face her past and finally move on. It's time to show them it's a mistake to step on Tang Nan Nan. She calls Jiang Jun to accompany her there. But of course, Zhu Hu must also be there to protect her. So now, it looks like she has two knights in shining armor, guarding her from the insolent Miss Fang and submissive Zhang Hai. The woman keeps on insulting her, which grinds Zhu Hu's and Jiang Jun's gears. So they return the insults on Miss Fang, calling her old. Then, Zhu Hu notices that the woman has sent a signal to the waiters behind them. It is a good thing that he did, because Miss Fang has a devious plan to further humiliate Nan Nan. One of the waiters brings out a steamed lobster. For unknown reasons, he trips, tossing the food toward Nan Nan. Miss Fang is already laughing her heart out, so she doesn't see Zhu Hu doing kung fu moves to toss the lobster right back at her. The food is splattered all over her hair, and the lobster has made her plastic nose upturned. Nan Nan takes this opportunity to say what she has been meaning to say to her ex. She returns his bank book that contains the 100,000 yuan. It's been 2 years since he gave her the bank book for his peace of mind. She can only hope that he still has his self-respect and old dreams, even after attaining a wealthy life. And with that, she walks away, followed by her two knights. The three of them laugh over the success of their antics. When Jiang Jun offers to get his car, Zhu Hu immediately turns Nan Nan in the other direction. He wants to be alone with her. They ride the bus home. Nan Nan finally reveals her connection to Zhang Hai. They were childhood sweethearts who used to live in the poor countryside. Nan Nan wanted to attend university, so her grandmother saved up money for her tuition. But Nan Nan couldn't leave Jiang Hai, whose family is poorer than them, and didn't want their son to attend university. But he insisted on going with Nan Nan. Since they both couldn't afford the tuition at the same time, Nan Nan gave her tuition to Jiang Hai. She did this, holding on to his promise that he would go back to her after graduating and take care of her education. Nan Nan did her best to support her boyfriend, working multiple jobs at a time just to make ends meet. But soon, she learned that Jiang Hai didn't appreciate her efforts. Then she discovered that he had replaced her with Miss Fang, who is the only daughter of a rich businessman. Jiang Hai gave her the bank book containing the money, saying he doubled the amount she gave him. She could use it to start anew, and so he can keep his peace of mind. Nan Nan says her only regret during that time was that she spent her grandmother's money for an unworthy person. That's why she did her best to give her back the money and make sure her eye surgery will be successful. After the breakup, Nan Nan posted her story on the internet, and the public liked it. Since then, she has been writing stories on the internet. She vowed to become a successful writer. But after 2 years, she's still the same poor Nan Nan. Juhu asks her to stop telling herself that. Everyone learns from their mistakes and grows up from them. Therefore, she's not the same person who will waste her time on undeserving people. Just like him, who has learned to be mindful of other people's situations and be careful with his money. Nan Nan expresses her gratitude to him for helping her move on, even though the circumstances that led to that fateful crash onto Jiang Hai's car were chaotic at best. Juhu smiles at her. Then he sees the bus that's doing their nightly duties to water the bushes. He turns around, protecting Nan Nan from getting wet. In that position, he professes that he wants to be the only man in her life. He finally confesses his love for her. Nan Nan says she can't have a boyfriend who can't remember her birthday, or their anniversary, or her phone number. But he promises he will. Before he can kiss her, they both fall to the ground. It seems like this is a couple who will always experience slapstick comedy to spice up their romantic life. Juhu and Nan Nan are officially a couple. Juhu decides to live with her in her apartment, where everything began. They live their lives blissfully, content with their situation. Juhu plans to go with his dream of developing a smartphone app. Nan is happy and supportive of this, but fate will test the strength of their love and trust in each other. Nan Nan has been offered to write a travelogue. This means she has to travel the world for a year, and the publishing company will shoulder the expenses. Nan Nan is so happy that her dreams are finally coming true. She tells this to Juhu, who is also happy and supportive of her. Just then, Nan Nan receives a call from her mother. She relays the information about her grandmother's eye surgery. Even though it went okay, a complication appeared. Her grandmother has 1 year left before going completely blind. Nan Nan is devastated to hear the news. She sacrificed so much for her, only to suffer from blindness. Right there and then, Juhu decides to give up his dream business to take care of Nan Nan and her grandma. After all, he has his mother's money to back him up. But this doesn't sit right with her. That's why she leaves him with only a letter. She writes that she chose to bring her grandma to her travels so she can enjoy her remaining time with her eyesight. As for leaving him, she says that it's painful for her to do what she has to do. She doesn't want him to give up his dreams just because of love. That's the one thing she's learned from her experiences with Jiang Hai, and she doesn't want Juhu to lose his self-respect because of her. She urges him to follow his dreams and to never forget her. If they meet again after a year, then she hopes they can still be friends, just like the old times. After reading the letter, Juhu feels hurt and left alone. It's even more painful because he plans to propose to her. Not in a grand way, but in a simpler one. However, he understands her point. He knows that she did this for both of them, because she loves him. If that's what she wants, then so be it. 1 year has passed. Juhu's startup company with the smartphone app has become successful. Because of this, he gets invited to speak at a business symposium in Italy. He takes this trip and gets reminded of the woman who is traveling the world for her dreams. He wonders where she is right now. After the symposium, he decides to take a walk around the tourist spots. He walks by at a public event. It's an annual kissing event by lovers at the so-called Juliet's house. He enters the place, even though he's surrounded by couples. There, he finally spots Nan Nan, who also happens to walk by. She's with her grandma. Frantic, he tries his best to get her attention. Eventually, the crowd sees his efforts, so they help him call Nan Nan's name. Thankfully, she hears the call. And when she turns, she sees Juhu on the balcony. The event's organizers prepare a ladder so she can climb up straight to Juhu. He's so happy to see her, and even shows off her phone number, birthday, and anniversary tattooed on his arms. Nan Nan can only feel ridiculously in love with this stubborn man. Just as the bell rings, the event's host signals all the couples to kiss. Juhu and Nan Nan join them, sealing the love and future together.